And over here is an old mud volcano. How old? It's about 3 days old. You can see how the mud came pouring out of the top there. So look, we're 200 miles from the epicenter here, and here's a crack in the heliport landing area. It continues all the way along here. You can actually see down about 3 feet in places. Splits into two here. This goes over here. You can see an offset in the in this trim around the tarmac.
As the Earth's crust shatters during the main quake, new stresses spread along the fault. Relieve the pressure in one place, and it builds up somewhere else, triggering aftershocks.
What you're seeing here is how those aftershocks happened over a period of about a week after the main shock. And that orange region, delineated by those orange dots, essentially gives you a feeling for the area of the fault along the plate boundary that ruptured in this event.
Every aftershock takes its toll on an already frightened population. And every aftershock potentially triggers another one.
That main shock was followed by hundreds of magnitude 5s and dozens of magnitude 6 earthquakes and a handful of magnitude 7s. Once you had a pattern of an earthquake happening, followed by a bigger one, you never know whether it's going to happen again.
Unrelenting tremors are just one of the new realities facing the Japanese people. Hundreds of thousands are homeless. In the regional capital of Sendai, the temporary shelters are full. But in this darkened, ravaged city, people do their best.
We're in Sendai, 300 or 400 meters from the shorefront, in a scene of apocalyptic chaos. It's cold, it's dark, there's no power anywhere. And yet, up there, in that abandoned block of flats, on the top floor, there's one light. One man, one family perhaps, trying to survive in this chaos.
The following day, on the main road back to Tokyo, the artery that connects north and south is empty. A reminder that this country has ground to a halt.
This is already one of the worst nuclear accidents in history if it stops right now. And we're dealing with multiple meltdown possibilities.
2 radioactive substances, cesium and iodine, were detected near the #1 reactor at the plant on Saturday.
The Fukushima nuclear base is about 60 kilometers that way. That's about 38 miles or so, I think. You know, we've got the windows closed. We're driving fast. Who knows whether it's safe? The advice is very conflicting. The American government says that has put an exclusion zone of 80 kilometers. And of course, we're well within that. On the other hand, the Japanese government say it's fine as long as you're more than 30 kilometers away. So, I mean, who can tell? Nobody knows. But we'll keep the windows closed, and I'll put on a mask. Mask. Looks good, huh?
At Fukushima power plant, the nuclear crisis worsens. The emergency batteries are dead. There is no power to cool the reactors. Temperatures quickly rise. Water levels drop. Pressure builds. The incredible heat of the fuel rods generates hydrogen gas. The hydrogen explodes. Desperate plant workers inject seawater into the reactors in an effort to cool them.
Essentially, those plant operators at the time said, we're going to commit plant suicide. We're going to go ahead and kill these plants, knowing that they'll never work again, but that was a better option than not letting the cooling system fail and risking even a worse outcome.
There's been another blast at a stricken Japanese nuclear power plant, the second hydrogen explosion in 3 days.
The Japanese military use helicopters to scoop up seawater to dump on the reactors. It doesn't work. The long-term consequence of what is happening at Fukushima remains unknown. The humanitarian disaster continues. Estimates put the death toll from the quake and tsunami at over 20,000. For scientists, the analysis goes on. From all the data they have acquired, one threat is still very real. For years, experts have warned of a large quake and tsunami off the coast near Tokyo. Japan's recent disaster happens 260 miles north. But now, the fault lines below Tokyo are even more stressed.
What's been expected is a slip of the Philippine plate relative to the Eurasian plate. And what has actually occurred is slip of the Pacific plate relative to the Eurasian plate. Sometimes a great earthquake will cause the next patch of the plate boundary to slip. So all eyes are on what's happening, how this earthquake has stressed the neighboring part of the plate boundary. You've got to understand this whole region is in a very high state of stress and ready to go. And they've been expected to go any minute. So this recent earthquake is going to have brought that closer. The question is how much closer?
When an earthquake like this happens, it basically, all of the stress that it relieves in the Earth's crust essentially gets transferred somewhere else. It doesn't go away. It actually adds loading to other parts of the crust.
The densest areas of population survive largely unscathed. Next time could be different.
One area of extreme concern is Tokyo, the world's largest city. There could be a major event in Tokyo that would be extremely damaging to this very densely populated region.
If you were going to choose somewhere to put one of the major industrial economies on the planet, that part of the Pacific Rim is not the place you would choose.
It could be happening as we speak, or it might not happen for a decade.
The critical thing is, has this particular earthquake shaken that region up so that it brings forward the timing of that earthquake?
It's foolish to think that we can stop natural phenomena. What we've got to do is to learn to live with them and minimize the consequences when they happen and minimize also the recovery time.
It's very difficult for science to protect against earthquakes and tsunamis. What science can do is help town planners, engineers to make buildings stronger, to make designs of buildings and cities more resilient. We cannot stop these things happening. We can't prevent it. We can prepare for it.
Scientists believe Japan's tsunami holds valuable lessons for the U.S.
One of the interesting things about this earthquake is that it's really a template for what might occur on the northern coast of Oregon and Washington. We know we are expecting an almost identical sized earthquake.
Stretching from Vancouver Island to Northern California is Cascadia, a vast and volatile fault line. Here, like Japan, one plate is driving beneath another, squeezing and compressing it. Tremendous pressure builds. Cascadia could rupture in a huge magnitude 9 quake. A megaquake off the Pacific Northwest coast would create a tsunami similar to Japan's. Roger Billam scans the coast of Japan for clues. He hopes to understand what could happen to America's west coast.
Like this coastline is long and flat. Parts of the Oregon coast are mountainous, that's not going to be a problem, but where we have flat-lying land near the shore, we've got to expect a similar effect.
It's a little bit like airplane crashes. The people go in and try to figure out what happened and learn from that. And unfortunately, we learn from these disasters, but it makes people stronger for the next one.
The world has seen what happened in Japan. The question is, are we prepared?
We compare it to Japan, where the preparation level is higher than what we have in the US. And we see that the Japanese had still quite a ways yet to go. It's a little sobering. Think about how many decades of work we have in front of us just to get to where the Japanese were, and then we have to get probably beyond that as well.